Good morning, students. Today we are going to discuss about the method by which transfer of pollen grains take place from the anther to the stigma of the flower is called pollination. So we are going to start about the pollination. The first I will be discussing about the importance of pollination. We know that pollination is a wonderful mechanism which provides food and shelter for the pollinating animals, then pollinating organisms. Maybe insects, maybe butterflies, maybe honeybees, maybe certain animals also. Many plants are pollinated by particular animal species and the flowers are modified accordingly. So, there exists a co-evolution. Important word. What do we mean by co-evolution? Now, one is depending on others. I told a particular type of plant will be pollinated by particular species. That means both are adapted accordingly. If the particular animals are not there as pollinating agents, the pollination will be not taking place, so the plants also cannot survive. So that is the meaning of co-evolution between plants and the animals. Let us imagine if pollination fails, what will happen? There will be any seed or fruit formation? Sure, there will be no fruit formation because the sexual reproduction second stage already we have discussed, which is called the fertilization, will be not taking place if the pollination doesn't take place. If not, what happens of the pollinating organisms and those that depend on these pollinating organisms for the food? Here this is the significance of the process of pollination. If the pollination doesn't take place, the plant seed formation will be not taking place. If the seeds are not formed, plants will not develop. So that particular pollinating agent, that means animals and the plants, both will extinct. So that is the importance of pollination. Now next part we are going to discuss the main part, which is called the pollination. The pollen grains produced in the anther, that one we know, ultimately will germinate when they reach to the stigma of the pistil. The reproductive organs, that is stamens and pistil of the flower, are spatially separated, and the mechanism which is essential for the pollen grains to reach to the stigma is needed. So, the process of transfer of pollen grains from the anther to the stigma of a flower is called pollination. Already we know that one. So, pollination definition we have to study, and what is the importance of pollination. Now, next part. Pollination is a characteristic feature of spermatophyte. We know already the meaning of this word spermatophyte. Phyte means plants. Spermato, seed-bearing plants. Already we know that there are two types of plants in the plant kingdom who are producing the seeds. They are called the spermatophyte, such as gymnosperms and angiosperms. But the difference is already we have discussed in 11th standard also. Pollination in gymnosperm is said to be direct. Why? Now here the ovules are naked. There is no ovary. That's why it is called gymnosperm. So the pollination in gymnosperm is said to be direct, as the pollens are deposited directly on the exposed ovules, naked ovules. That's why it is called direct pollination. Whereas in angiosperms it is said to be indirect, because the pollens are deposited on the stigma of the ovary. In majority of angiosperms, the flower opens and exposes its mature anther and stigma for pollination. When the flowers open for the pollination, the transfer of pollen grain will be taking place from anther to stigma. In open condition of a flower, these flowers are called chasmogamous. Underline that one, chasmogamous flowers, and the pollination type it is called chasmogamy. Gamy means gamete, chasmo means open condition of the flower. Second type it is called the cleistogamous flower. Cleistogamous, when the just opposite word, cleistogamous is nothing but the pollination will be taking place when the flowers will be in closed condition. So one type of pollination where the flowers will be opened and the pollination will be taking place. These types of flowers are called the casmogamous flowers, and the condition of pollination is called casmogamy. Another type it is called cleistogamous flowers, and the pollination type it is called cleistogamy. So here the differences. The pollination, what are the differences between pollination of angiosperm and gymnosperm, and the differences between the casmogamous flowers and the cleistogamous flowers. Now next part we are going to discuss, based upon the flower on which the pollen of flowers reaches, pollination is classified into two types. One is called self-pollination, it is also called autogamy. Another type it is called cross-pollination, or it is also called allogamy. These two terms we know from the 10th standard onwards. We are discussing all these things. Now next part we are going to discuss all these two types, that is self-pollination or autogamy and cross-pollination or allogamy. Self-pollination or autogamy, the meaning, literal meaning, Greek word auto means self, gammas means marriage. Then fusion will be fusion of gametes will be taking place. According to the majority of the botanists, the transfer of pollen on the stigma of the same flower is called the self-pollination. It is also called the autogamy. In this case, the flowers should be or must be the bisexual flower. We know the bisexual flower. What do you mean by bisexual flower? Now when the flower bears both the reproductive organs, male and female reproductive organs, in this case only self-pollination will be possible. Self-pollination is possible only in those plants which bear the bisexual flowers. In order to promote self-pollination, the flowers of the plants have several adaptations or mechanisms. First one is called cleistogamy. In cleistogamy, cleisto means, I told just now, closed condition, the fusion of the gametes will be taking place. In cleistogamy or cleistogamous flowers never open to expose the reproductive organs. Thus, the pollination is carried out within the closed flower. Just now we have discussed. Examples: Commelina, Viola, Oxalis are some examples for cleistogamous flowers. In Commelina bengalensis, name of scientific name of this plant, Commelina bengalensis, there are two types of flowers are there. Flowers that are present in the aerial position of the branches of that plant, they are called casmogamous flowers. And some of the flowers born in the underground branches, they are called the cleistogamous flower. That is the speciality in Commelina bengalensis. There are two types of flowers are produced, aerial and underground flowers. Aerial flowers are brightly colored, casmogamous and insect pollinated, but underground flowers are born on the subterranean branches. I mean underground. Subterranean means subterranean, underground branches of the rhizome that are dull and cleistogamous and self-pollination and are not dependent on pollinators for pollinators means the agents which are responsible for pollination, such as maybe insects, maybe air, maybe wind, all these. So, that is the speciality in Commelina bengalensis. 2 marks question may come. What is the speciality of Commelina bengalensis about pollination? Now come to the next, second type. So we are discussing about the cell pollination. First type we have discussed about the cleistogamy. Second type it is called the homogamy. When the stamens and stigma of a flower mature at the same time, at that time sure the pollination will be taking place in the same flower. So it is an example of self-pollination. When the stamen and stigma of a flower mature at the same time, it is said to be homogamy. It favors self-pollination to occur. Example, already we know Mirabilis jalapa, 4 o'clock plant, and Catharanthus roseus, Nithyakulan intamil it is called. Now third type it is called incomplete dichogamy. Dichogamy, the meaning of this word is when the stamen and stigma of a flower mature at different times. So in that case self-pollination is not possible at all if the stamens and stigma they mature at different times. But Spatial, again, sometimes, that's why incomplete dichogamy. Sometimes the time of maturation of essential organs, that is androecium and gynoecium, overlap so that it becomes favorable for cell pollination. That is the special case in incomplete dichogamy. So these are the three types of cell pollination, or it is also called autogamy. Second type of pollination, it is called the cross pollination. What do you mean by cross pollination? Refers to the transfer of pollen grains on the stigma of the another flower, maybe in the same plant, maybe in the different plant. The cross pollination is of two types that we will be discussing in the next class. Thank you, children.